You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome to episode 219 of the Soul Forge podcast.
Welcome to the Soul Forge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soul Forge.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Soul Forge. I am your host, Sean, as always, and with me today, I have a special treat for all of you listeners out there in podcast land. Now, as many of you know, I do not only the Soul Forge podcast, I also host or co-host the Cosmic Pizza podcast, and as hinted 2 weeks ago, thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. 2 weeks ago, I teased the Babylon 5 introduction to Season 4 at the end credits. And as of Sunday, the 5th of September, we launched the Epsilon 3 Babylon 5 Rewatch podcast, also hosted by my buddies Paul and Dan from the Cosmic Pizza podcast. And they're with me today. But we're not talking about Babylon 5. We're not talking about Cosmic Pizza. We're talking about the nature of friendship. How are you boys doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Hard day at work, but it's always good to be spend the evenings with your best friends.
That's right. And for anybody new to the podcast, that's the voice of Paul. And now I shall introduce you to the voice of Dan.
I am the voice of Dan. Yes. It's always nice to spend time with friends. You see, I've gone the other way around. I've got a bad weekend coming up at work, or a very busy weekend at work coming up. So I've had it quite easy up to that point, but now it's going to be crunch time. So I'm spending with friends first, and then I'm going to go to work.
Oh, there you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And as many of our listeners may or may not know, we always record Wednesdays. It's 4 o'clock p.m. my time, but 9 o'clock your time, because you guys are on the other side of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
And you guys have actually met in real life, but I've never met either. Not for real.
No, we haven't met.
No, not yet.
No, online friends.
Not yet. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a plan. It's a plan. But anyway, what happened was earlier in the week, dear listeners, I came across a meme that kind of touched my soul, I guess you could say, and I shared it, and it also touched Dan's soul. And it was commented on by so many people, I think it touched a lot of different souls. And since we're on the Soul Forge, that's what we're going to talk about this week. So I guess to start off with, I should read the meme or the tweet or whatever it was to our listeners so they have some context. So what it is, it's a question that somebody asks. What kind of friend are you? And the answer is, I think I'm a background friend. I don't fit in with any particular group of friends. They're all closer with each other, and I sometimes link on, but am permanent with no one. I think about all these people constantly, but I don't think I cross their minds often. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I could relate to it, so I had to share it. And evidently, it touched a lot of other people's souls. Wouldn't you say, boys?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
For me, it was. As soon as I started reading it, I was like, yeah, actually, that kind of relates to every friendship group I've ever had, dating right back to school. There was always that group who then hung out there, and then I would go and meet them on a Friday night. And then there would be another group that I was sort of friends with, and then I'd meet them on the Saturday at the shops, and we'd hang out. And I was never the core member of that group. I was never involved in the organization. I was just like, I was tagged along. I was invited along, and that was it. I was never part of the planning process. And it seems to have been the same sort of thing all the way through, apart from with you guys, of course.
Of course. Yeah, and the fact that so many people could relate to this thing, it was surprising because I thought I was pretty much alone in the feeling like that. That I've never really had a permanent best friend like throughout my entire life, and maybe that's because I went to what 5, 6, 7 different public schools. We moved so many times that it wasn't easy to maintain friendships or even make friends because I knew that I wouldn't be there very long. And I think as I was doing minor research for this episode, I thought that's probably why I've always been a collector, because even though I moved so many times and nobody was permanent in my life, I always had my stuff. And that could be an entirely different show or topic. But anyway, so let's talk about the nature of friendships. And Paul, do you relate to that meme quite a bit too, or?
Yes, yeah, I do. I think I'm a similar position to yourself. I spent a lot of time moving around, but it was just at a time when my dad was, obviously moving around for various reasons. His job, just started a new family, got a better home for the family, and because I moved a lot, I also moved schools a lot. So I spent most of my time trying to make friends, and not really. When I got to the school, everybody already had their friends. There were already groups of people. So I was trying to get into various groups, and hard when they already know each other, and you're the new guy, and you don't really fit, and you're trying to find a group that is your type, and it just didn't really work. So I was always on the fringe of other people's groups. But then, in the evenings when we came home from school, there would be a small group of us in there because we live in a very small cul-de-sac. So it was about 5 or 6 houses, and there was only really two or three houses out of that had children of a similar age. So it was always, you come back to those sort of friends, but they were always, that was the sort of your home friends, if you like. When you go to school, you were trying to get a different set of friends. And then I moved to a school, sort of high school, that was a few more miles away than I was used to, and you had to cross a border to get to it, basically. I mean, the school that we went to really sort of serviced one area, and our area, which was a little bit further away. And because of that, there was only 2 or 3 of us from that area that would go to the school. So again, you were totally, not only just a different group of friends, but a different area. People who lived in a different area, played in a different area, had a lot of shared experiences in their area, but nobody really played in the places that we played in the woods that that we used to play in, or the cycle around the streets that we used to cycle around, and all that type of thing. So it was always really, really hard to start again. And then halfway through my high school, we moved away to a different school, and then came back to that school, and it was the same thing over and over again. So I think that really sort of made me, and I always thought I was a shy person, but I think nowadays they call that, a sort of introverted personality. And I was quite happy with my own company and playing with my own toys and what have you. So it was always harder to get out and about and play with, have certain friends. However, in high school, I did find a really good friend. There was a small group of us, about 5 of us, that was okay, but 2 or 3 of those friends were a bit, they were the same. They probably felt the same way, that they were just on the fringe of a group, that didn't quite fit in. But 2 of us, in the end, we've become lifelong friends, but we are both still very much on the edges of any other sort of group. So we're very similar.
Okay, yeah. Now, have you guys seen the movie with Paul Rudd called I Love You, Man?
I have not.
Okay,
yes.
you need to watch it. When I first watched it, I was like, holy crap, they made a movie about my life. Because the Paul Rudd character, he has no real close friends. He's got no close dude friends. He's always been closer to women. So he's trying to find a best man for his wedding that's coming up. And so he's going on almost like blind dates. And his future wife tells him to go over to her friend's husband's house because they always have a poker night. And so it's this group of 5 or 6 friends who've known each other for years and years. And I'm like, you know what? I would like a group of friends like that I've had for 20 or 30 years, and we get together once or twice a week for poker or TV or movies or drinks or something like that. But I've never had that. And so the listeners who have seen that movie, I Love You, Man, can definitely understand where I'm coming from, and I see Dan's shaking his head quite a bit.
Yeah, it's
You can relate.
it's the same. There are friends that I've had for a very long time. We've met a few of them.
Yes.
Owen is probably the eldest friend that you guys have met through Cosmic Pizza. But again, he was the focal point of that group. He was the guy that we would meet up at his house. Everyone would go to his house, but everyone lived within walking distance other than myself. Because I never moved around. I was always in the same place. We grew up in the same place, never moved. But I took a very long bus journey to get to school, to secondary school at least here. So the primary school was very close, and then everyone I knew at primary school went to local secondaries. I took a very longer, big jump over to a different school. So there was that break. But even with that distance, that kept that sort of similar experience that you guys have gone through, because they all lived close. They all went to the same primary school. They all had that same friendship circle. But then gradually, as things changed to uni as well, there was a cluster of friends who I was part of, but I've never felt like I was the center or involved in the organizational part of it. Even
right, and it's almost yeah, like if you weren't there, they would still be having fun without you.
Yeah, exactly. There is like almost a second hand where they're talking about experiences that they've had together, but I've never been quite in on it, or I've heard that story, but I've only heard it second hand. I wasn't there when it actually happened.
Right.
There's two great buddies of mine, and we do meet up at least once every year, and we try to, and we play board games, and we go see a movie. We were seeing all the Star Wars movies, but that's kind of come to an end now. But they sort of hang out separately as well. So their families are quite close. They might go out for a day or something like that, but they're still quite far away. It's quite a big journey for me to go and see them. Now, maybe that is, as Paul was suggesting, that maybe that's a personality trait. But as I was sort of sharing this status, lots of people were saying that's not me, but I do kind of skirt along the outsides of some friendships, and maybe I have one or two really close friends. So I was starting to wonder, is it actually a personality trait and that we are all introverts and only introverts will go for this statement? Or is it actually that this particular statement is a very specific thing that I learned about in a very dusty old psychology class called a Barnum Fora effect.
The Barnum Fora effect. And we're going to learn more about that right after these messages from the ESO network, aren't we?
Welcome to Dr. Geek's Laboratory.
Dr. Geek here with another reminder that the ESO network is pro-science and pro-vaccine. We urge you to be a superhero and protect yourself, your family, and your fellow geeks around the world. Don't be fooled by the forces of evil and their anti-science misinformation campaign. Consult the latest CDC guidelines, your doctor, and get the COVID vaccine today.
Okay, promo for the Flopcast. Let's go.
First, I need an adjective.
Naked.
Need a noun.
Wombat.
Place.
Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Number.
251.
Okay then, the Flopcast is a naked podcast about cartoons, music, comics, movies, and wombats. Find us on the ESO network and flopcast.net. Go ahead and listen to it in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, 251 times.
Okay, and those were fantastic promos. Tell us more about the effect here that you researched.
Well, it's better to sort of explain it by showing someone. And I just so happened to have actually put in all of your details, both of you, because I knew we were going to be talking about this episode. And I put you both through a personality test. So I just wanted to see if I could get a more precise, rather than relying on a meme, I was going to give you a nice, precise personality test. So obviously I'm not going to say whose results this is. I'm going to wait for you to basically raise your hand. I know it's great for the listeners, but raise your hand when you hear the results of this test, and you'll know which it is, and then I'll read the other one as well. So this person has a need for other people to like and admire them, yet a tendency to be very critical of themselves. Whilst they have some personality weaknesses that are generally able to be compensated for, they have quite a considerable capacity to not have that turn to their advantage. They can sort of hold it back a bit. Very disciplined, self-controlled on the outside, but very worrisome and insecure when they really think about it on the inside. At times, very serious doubts whether they have made the right decision about doing the right thing, but they prefer a certain amount of change and variety, becoming dissatisfied with being hemmed in by a restriction or a limitation, really wanting to push themselves. Pride themselves as an independent thinker, and don't accept statements without some sort of satisfactory proof. You found it unwise to be too frank in revealing too much about yourself, but at times you can be quite extroverted and affable and sociable in the right circumstances. But you're very introverted overall and wary and reserved. But your aspirations tend to be very unrealistic, but you do compensate it, and you eventually fall into that pattern. How about who thinks it's them?
Well, Paul was raising his hand.
My hand, but I mean, it could quite easily have been Sean.
Me too. Yeah, it could be either one of us.
Well, that's good, because that was all a load of baloney. It wasn't a personality test at all.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I was waiting for the catch.
This is a classic thing. This is a Barnum Fora effect, sometimes called an ocean test, where it's no matter what the outcome, no matter who's taken it. Ooh.
So you froze for a split second there, Dan.
That's right. This is a Barnum Fora test, sometimes called an ocean test, where it's regardless of whatever you put into it, whatever anyone comes to this personality test, they will be given the same result, because all of those statements are generally applicable to pretty much anyone taking this test. You would have to be either aware of the Barnum Fora effect, or you would have to have some sort of deeper understanding of yourself, which goes far beyond most human understanding. You would have to be some sort of god to understand yourself that well. You fall into the traps. The idea of a Barnum effect is that there's a generalized statement with something that makes you seem like the better person at the end of the day in the argument, and it hypes you up and plays on your willingness to be humble in society. As long as you believe that the statements I was just saying were for you and that I was saying it to you, you would believe that it was about you. And every time I reread that meme that started this whole conversation, I wonder, is it one of those Barnum Fora effects? Because at the very end of the statement, it says, I think about them, but they don't think about me. Every time I was thinking about that, I was like, is that true? Do I think about them more than they think about me? What if I am part of their world? And what if they feel the same way about me, that I don't actually think about them at all? And am I feeling better about myself? Now, Barnum Fora effects, there's a whole long history, and there's loads of YouTube videos. Sent a short clip to Sean as well. The amazing Randy was a magician come skeptic who used to use that exact example. And he would show up how astrology does the exact same thing. It gives blanket statements that people could then interpret into their own lives. So I was wondering, do we really feel this way about our friendships, or is this actually something deeper and we were just all conned by a meme?
It's quite possible. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, you know what? I think a lot of this stuff would be solved if we just communicated with people. Like, how do you really feel about me? And that requires a level of confidence and trust and honesty that sometimes is pretty rare and not everybody can do. Like,
I mean, if you're going to ask that question, then you might not get the truth back. You would get something you want to hear.
Right.
When you're face to face, I mean, as soon as
yes,
all your friends go off and start giggling in the corner and they're talking about you again, it's different. But yeah. That does require a level of trust.
Oh, definitely. And I was looking through my my list of people that I've known for a long time, and I was thinking about you guys too. And I was like, okay, so the whole reason we started podcasting was because we were doing something for Temporal Trek, Dan, and then we decided that we had such good chemistry that, hey, let's do our own show together. And I didn't really know you as well as I knew Paul, because I've known Paul for 7+ years. Through the podcasting, and I knew you too, but we weren't as close. I think we're all in the same level now because we've been doing this for how many years.
Yeah.
But and then I was looking through my people that I know in real life, and I've known my buddy Andrew since 1987, since grade 6, and it was finally in grade 6 that I went to the same school for a number of years, 6, 7, and 8, and then high school with the same group of people. And so I've known Andrew since 87, since grade 6, and he lives in Sault Ste. Marie, so I don't see him very often. We don't text more than once every couple months, but whenever I'm in the Sioux, I go and visit him, and it's like no time has passed. So that's a cool thing. And then my buddy Renee, who often listens to this podcast, he also listens to Cosmic Pizza, and he's now listening to the Epsilon 3 Babylon 5 podcast. I've known him since about 1997, and he was almost my best man at my wedding, but I chose somebody else because he was going through mental health issues, and I wanted him to have something to live for, which was being my best man. But that's a whole other story. But so Renee, if you're listening, I wanted to pick you, but I was afraid the other guy was going to kill himself. So anyway, Renee and I have known each other since university. He went to college, and I went to university. It was at the same campus, though, in North Bay. And every year we exchange birthday gifts, not necessarily on birthdays, because his birthday is in April, and I didn't see him until I think June or July. So he finally got his birthday gift then. My birthday just passed, and I'm sure he has something for me, but I haven't seen him yet either. Even though we talk every day, we're always texting, but we hardly ever see each other. And we only live like 10 minutes away, but we never see each other because he's got a busy life. He's going back to school through correspondence. He's got a pile of kids. He's got all kinds of responsibilities. But I don't know if him and I are best friends or not, or we're close and we've known each other a long time. I don't have anybody that I could point to and say, yeah, see that guy right there? That's my best friend. What about you guys? Do you have that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my friend Paul, who we've spoken about on the podcast, on the Cosmic Pizza podcast, he's the guy I've known since 1976 when we first met, going into high school. He went on to be, I went on to be his best man. He was my best man. We're both godparents to each other's kids. I can honestly say he's not only the longest friend that I've known, he's the best, because some of the shared experiences we have and some of the problems and issues that we've both had, we've managed to share it and work through it. He's the go-to guy to speak to when you've got a problem that you can't talk to your wife or your family about. My mother once called him another son that she never had. Because we used to spend so much time together when we were younger. He was always around our house. He'd come and have meals with us, when we were like 16, 17, 18, just as we were finding our way in life and, finding out what jobs we were going to be doing. So yeah, absolutely. He is the best friend I've had. We now work in the same place, although we started off in different careers and we've ended up in the same place. So we see a lot of each other.
You're lucky.
Yeah, he's the best friend I've ever had. He's a brother. He's not even a friend. He's my brother. We're that close. I have other friends that I've made more recently in the last 10 years, or even longer than that. In fact, Lee that we've mentioned, he's been on the Cosmic Pizza, and there's a group that basically I've met through my wife's church. They all, are part of the church group they had. They held a quiz night one time, and we all sort of, a couple of us who are not so much churchy sort of turned up and got talking, and we created a film night out of it. So now we have a film night group, which we've just hopefully restarting again this month after a bit of a hiatus through COVID. And that's a good group of friends that we got. It's the share a film, have a pizza, a few drinks, sort of friends that
like the weekly poker night game.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that sort of thing. And they are really good group, good friends, and that we can have a good laugh with them. But I wouldn't necessarily share as much as I would with them. It's the sort of night you have together with them that you just want to have a good time. You go down the pub with your mates type of thing, but you wouldn't necessarily share that you've got issues or problems or whatever. Right. So, but I mean, they have really sort of come recently, and again, they that sort of group of people have gone off and done separate things, and I don't want to say without me, but with me not present for whatever reason, and that's where I got that I'm on the periphery of that group.
Yes.
But it's always down to me to organise the film night, so it's always up to me to get the group together when I want to be there. But when they nobody sort of steps forward and says, why don't we have a film night this week and organises it? I am the organiser of it, so. But yeah, that's my sort of group of friends, if you like.
Okay, and Dan?
I'm friendless. I've got nobody. I got nobody. No, I've got the guy who was my best friend, best man at the wedding. We've kept in contact, but again, he has a stronger base of friends because he's a teacher, so he hangs out with other teachers, not necessarily from his school, but people he grew up with who also became teachers, and they have a strong presence. I go and join them for games nights and things like that. But again, I am not a core member of that group, so I maybe go once a year. Same with the other friends that I mentioned earlier, Steve and Dave. They won't mind me mentioning them, but we hang up at least once a year. There's another friend, another Dan H. We met way back when, because we were both Dan with an H as our surname. We were placed together in an English group, and we just formed a friendship just purely from the fact that we were sitting next to each other alphabetically in an English class. Mm-hmm. And he is probably the longest running standing friend. But again, we talk, by text, maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year. He's the only friend I could say that instant shorthand. You could just start talking, and it's almost like we haven't, been apart for ages. But again, I don't really get to see him. That could be a whole part of, being a stay-at-home dad has sort of changed that dynamic. The fact that I haven't, been in a single job for more than a few years at a time. So for the last 20 years, it hasn't really been a stable friendship group environment. But other than you guys, I think you have been the most consistent friends I've ever had. And I love you guys.
Oh, we love you too, Dan.
You too, Dan. Oh, man.
Because we're the 3 best friends that anybody could ever ask. However that goes from The Hangover. I'll try to find a YouTube clip and insert it because I can't sing.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody could have. I mean, the 3 best friends.
But I can totally relate. Your friend Dan H is like my friend Andrew. We hung out all throughout high school. I was like his mom's 3rd child. It was great, but I see him once or twice a year when I happen to go to the zoo, but that's it. And much like Paul has to organize movie nights, for a while I was organizing Sunday morning coffee club and just having people come over. And we did that probably for a good 1.5 years or 2 years, but nobody else would ever organize it. We wouldn't have it anywhere else. It always had to be me. And I had to text people and message people on Facebook. It was annoying. I finally put an end to it because nobody was contributing, and I felt like I was just the only one doing anything. It was annoying. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's it now and again you want to actually go to something, rather than be the organizer of it.
That's right.
It's like I can't remember the last time I went to a barbecue. It's one of those things. I organize them all.
Yeah, I mean, other than family barbecues, like we have the family barbecues, we have the get-togethers where I see the family, but friends and barbecues, that's something that happens way back in the past. That's the memories I always have. But again, always going to someone else's, never organizing it. When we did organize it, it was my flatmates who were organizing it, and it was all their circles of friends who just happened to be the same friends I had. I really wasn't bringing anyone to the table. There was literally no one. The few times I had friends who visited me from back home, from old friendship circles, it would just be us, and we would go for a smaller night out, and we wouldn't do the big parties and things like that, just because it didn't overlap. It wasn't the same time period. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so very strange. I'm just a lousy friend. Ugh.
Well, the way I like to think about it is that, maybe the people that are important to us, we're just as important to them, but they don't tell us because maybe they don't have the same communication style. They're not as confident. Maybe they're extroverts and whatever, and we're introverts, and so we think more. I don't know.
Maybe.
But so that's pretty much this week's topic, and I just thought it was very interesting, and who better to discuss it than the 3 of us?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, Dan, you may think you're a lousy friend, but you're our lousy friend.
Thanks, man. That's okay. I'm just gonna go cry myself to sleep.
And you called Eagle Moss for me to get them to change my address on my credit card information.
Very true. But then,
so I didn't have to call long distance to the
that's any excuse to really call a company and just have a go, really, more than anything else. That's a
Makes sense,
pastime.
makes sense.
And did I cry? Did I have a go at you, Sean, when you broke the mug that I sent to you? You know, cost me a fortune.
No.
Didn't know.
Yeah, I know. Except I didn't break the mug. It was Julie and her kid. But, anyway, I think this is a good place to end it, unless there's any concluding thoughts that we have.
Nothing I can think of.
Nope. Okay, sounds good to me. Listeners, if you have any thoughts, why don't you send us an email at soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. I know that you won't, because nobody ever does, and that's okay, because I think about you guys more than you think about me, and that's perfectly fine. But anyway, don't forget to leave a 5-star review in the podcatcher of your choice. Check out Dan's Temporal Trek podcast. Check out the Cosmic Pizza podcast that the three of us do. Check out the Epsilon 3 podcast that the three of us do. And, of course, stay tuned for another exciting episode of the Soul Forge next week. But until then, take care, and remember, sometimes you're not invited, so you won't steal the attention. Remember that. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Soul Forge podcast. Your support is greatly appreciated, and we hope you'll tune in again next time. Remember that you can visit soulforgepodcast.com for all of our social media links, and don't forget to share the show with everyone you know. The Soul Forge podcast is your best source for living your best life.
Think about it.
Will you marry me?
Yes! Peter already booked the place we went for that long weekend. So romantic. So romantic.
She doesn't know she's on speakerphone.
That's where you guys had sex for the first time, right?
Wow.
Marry him.
Lock that tongue down, girl. So you're not gonna have a best man?
Here's the thing, Zoe. Peter's always been a girlfriend guy. All his dude friends just fell by the wayside. Why is it weird that I had girlfriends?
Nothing, we're just saying you never really had a best friend is all.
Well, who's your best friend?
Your brother, Robbie.
What's up?
He's about the coolest guy I know.
So what do I do? How do I meet friends? If you see a cool-looking guy, strike up a conversation and ask him on a man date, okay? You know what I mean? No. Casual lunch or after-work drinks. You're not taking these boys to see The Devil Wears Prada. Oh, God, I love that movie. No, I won't.
He just moved to L.A. His mother says he's so excited to meet you.
I really enjoyed this. Awesome.
Yeah, he got up in there.
Like tongue?
A whole bunch of tongue deep in my mouth. I'm Peter Clavin. I'm the realtor. Sydney Fife.
Hey, check out these two.
That guy needs to fart. He does seem to be clenching. Watch the leg. Boom. He farted in my open house.
He sure did.
I'm thinking it might be a little bit small.
Totally, and it smells like fart.
Hey, Sydney. I could be in Venice by 5. I can do that.
It's a mandate. This is a mandate.
He's the most beautiful dog in the world.
Need a plastic bag or?
Oh, no, I don't clean up after my dog.
Damn it! How about cleaning up after your dog?
You mind your own!
What the?
Society tells us to act civilized, but the truth is we're animals, and sometimes you gotta let it out. Try it. Respect the process. Yeah, you feel better?
Yeah.
Want to eat a corn dog?
Yeah.
Let's go.
So what do you guys do for 7 straight hours?
Yeah, Pete.
So is he your best man?
It's way too early to tell. Sweet, sweet hanging. Truth is, I've been a girlfriend guy, but out of all those girls, you're the only one that wanted me to have my own life. It's like one of the most romantic things I could ever think of. What's up? Come on.
Hey, Geek! I just stepped in your dog's crap! Peter, run!
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.